At the pinnacle of his professional success, with vast fortunes just within grasp, he chose to indulge his youthful paramour in an extravagant getaway. He reserved the presidential suite at the St. George Royal Hotel, the pinnacle of the city's elite five-star venues, a towering symbol of decades spent amassing influence and riches. He felt utterly confident in his arrangements, a flawless retreat, shielded by impenetrable, noise-isolated barriers. He was certain his spouse, an elegant and reserved beauty he secretly regarded as little more than a decorative fixture in his residence, would remain oblivious. Yet he committed a single devastating error, a monumental oversight. Donovan Steele instructed his chauffeur to head to the incorrect venue. He strode directly toward his rendezvous with his paramour for a debauched interlude, unwittingly stepping into the core of his wife's territory and charging straight into his own dramatic downfall. Donovan Steele straightened the knot in his silk necktie, gazing at his image in the gleaming black surface of his executive office's expansive window. 45 floors beneath him, New York City stretched out like an intricate grid of circuits, a tangled web of authority and finance that he, Donovan Steele, executive vice president at Steele and Associates Capital, had conquered. He stood as a monarch surveying his realm. His attire had been bespoke made along Fifth Avenue. The timepiece on his arm was a Patek Philippe Nautilus, and the vehicle waiting below was a deep navy Rolls-Royce Ghost. Such items weren't simple luxuries. They proclaimed his triumphs, evidence of his cutthroat ascent through the ranks of business. His existence was a carefully orchestrated work of art. His Upper East Side condominium had graced the pages of design publications. His pair of offspring attended the priciest elite academies available. And there was his wife, Genevieve, stunning, refined, hailing from an esteemed lineage, though he inwardly dismissed it as faded wealth, masking current constraints. She embodied the ideal executive partner, managing their home with quiet competence, orchestrating flawless soirees, and never probing his extended work hours. Over 15 years, she had formed a steady, foreseeable, and, if he admitted it, somewhat monotonous element of his impeccable routine. He perceived her as a solid investment, akin to a dependable share in a blue-chip firm, yielding steady but uninspiring returns. A subtle rap on the rich wooden door snapped him from his contemplation. "Enter," he commanded, his tone gentle yet commanding. The entrance swung open to admit Skylar Hayes. At 26, she possessed amber-hued eyes and waves of golden blonde locks tumbling down her back. As a novice specialist in the mergers and acquisitions unit, she was sharp enough to captivate, yet lacking the drive to challenge him. In all respects, she contrasted sharply with Genevieve. Whereas Genevieve represented timeless poise and quiet composure, Skylar radiated energy, insistence, and an exhilarating candor in her esteem for his dominance and affluence. She eased the door shut, a mischievous grin curving her mouth. "Ready for our escape this weekend, Chief?" she murmured, resting against his workstation. The aroma of her lavish fragrance, a present from him, wafted through the room. "Everything's been orchestrated flawlessly," Donovan replied, a smug expression playing on his features. He approached her, settling his palms on her hips. The presidential suite at the St. George Royal, ice-cold champagne on arrival, an exclusive booking at the chef's counter for supper, and a couple of days where your sole duty is pure pleasure. Skylar's gaze sparkled with surprise. "The St. George Royal, Donovan, that's iconic. I figured snagging a suite there on short notice was out of reach. For ordinary folks, sure," he responded, savoring the admiration in her expression. "But the Steele reputation still unlocks privileges, my dear. One quick chat with the front desk manager, a nod to a prospective business deal, and they bent over backward to accommodate." A customary wave of arrogance washed over him. This defined his influence, the knack for reshaping reality with merely a conversation. He had informed Genevieve of a sudden trip to Zurich for a critical finance summit. The deception was impeccable, credible, infused with prestige and demanding total disconnection. He had even assembled a satchel stuffed with fabricated ledgers, a theatrical flourish that amused him. As usual, Genevieve had prepared his luggage with her serene, compliant demeanor. She had even prompted him about his hypertension pills. The contradiction was exquisite. "What about Genevieve?" Schuyler inquired, her words barely audible, a trace of doubt shadowing her face. Donovan waved it off casually. "She assumes I'll be haggling with Swiss financiers the whole time. Likely she's plotting her agenda for the fundraising ball or chatting with the landscaper about blooms. Her realm is compact, self-contained. She'd never dream of anything amiss." He was genuinely persuaded. Genevieve inhabited a gilded enclosure he had fashioned for her. She filled her days with philanthropy, social teas, and literary circles alongside fellow high society matrons. He bankrolled it generously, of course, granting her a lavish stipend that he ensured her every comfort, figuring she must be perfectly happy with it all. He'd persuaded himself that her apparent disinterest in striving for more meant she was truly fulfilled, rather than concealing some deeper discontent. She belonged to another time, a stunning figure from days gone by, oblivious to the fierce drive and hard work that fueled today's ruthless pursuits. She couldn't grasp the mechanics of the cutthroat realm he commanded. "Perfect," Schuyler breathed, melting into his arms. "I want you entirely to myself." "You'll have me," he vowed, pulling her into a passionate kiss. The rush from the forbidden nature of it, the bold recklessness of the situation, left him exhilarated. After all, he was Donovan Steele. He set the standards. This getaway went beyond mere indulgence. It was a tribute to his invincible position in life. He was whisking his lover to the city's grandest resort, a symbol of the upper echelons, and pulling it off brazenly while his wife remained unaware. That sheer nerve of it made the experience all the more exhilarating. As he cradled Schuyler, a quick vision crossed his thoughts. Genevieve methodically pressing his clothes and packing them away. A brief, subtle twinge stirred inside him, not remorse exactly, but a whisper of discomfort. He brushed it aside without a second thought. It was merely the fading echo of an outdated moral code, one that held no value for him anymore. The Rolls-Royce Ghost came to a hushed halt under the elaborate wrought iron and glass canopy of the St. George Royal Hotel. A uniformed attendant in a flawless dark green outfit accented with gold shoulder trim glided forward with polished efficiency to assist Donovan before he even realized they'd pulled up. "Welcome to the St. George Royal, Mr. Steele," the man intoned softly, his tone deferential. He knew Donovan on sight, or perhaps just the vehicle and the tailored attire. That was sufficient. Donovan alighted onto the polished granite pavement, savoring the customary thrill of stepping into such a venue. This was where he thrived naturally. He didn't come as a visitor. He embodied the elite for whom spots like this existed. Schuyler stepped out from the opposite door, her eyes widening in awe at the hotel's exterior, an opulent Beaux-Arts wonder of intricate limestone details, sweeping arches and imposing pillars. For a moment, she seemed daunted, a girl from a quiet, rural spot amid this world of titans. Donovan thought it charming. He linked his arm with hers, his grip steady and supportive. "Act like you fit right in," he whispered, offering a patronizing grin. Her momentary doubt evaporated, giving way to a resolute gleam in her gaze. She raised her head high, clutched his arm tightly, and they glided together through the gleaming brass revolving entrance. The foyer unfolded like a temple to opulence. Its vaulted ceiling rose 3 levels, embellished with a stunning mural depicting ancient deities reclining amid ethereal clouds. At its heart dangled a massive crystal fixture, said to be rescued from a royal French chateau, diffusing a soft amber glow across the space. The ground was laid in a mosaic of gleaming Italian marble, buffed to perfection. The atmosphere carried the fragrance of blooming lilies mingled with the aura of inherited fortune. subdued voices in murmured exchanges, the faint tinkle of barware from the nearby lounge, and the gentle melodies from a resident pianist wove together into an orchestra of elegant calm. Donovan advanced with assured poise to the reception area. The expansive desk gleamed in varnished mahogany. A poised woman with a sleek chignon and a gracious expression turned her focus to them at once. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the St. George Royal." "Donovan Steele," he stated firmly, sliding his American Express Centurion black card across the surface. "I booked the presidential suite." The clerk's composed smile held steady, though Donovan caught a flicker of added admiration in her look. The presidential suite wasn't merely lodging, it signified prestige. It catered to monarchs, world leaders, and business magnates. "Certainly, Mr. Steele. We've anticipated your stay," she replied, her hands swiftly navigating the computer keys. "All arrangements are set. Your bags will be delivered upstairs right away. We've also prepared a chilled bottle of Dom Perignon 2008 to mark your arrival." "Splendid," Donovan acknowledged with a curt, dismissive incline of his head. He glanced at Skylar, who was struggling to feign nonchalance but couldn't mask her bubbling delight. Discreetly, she was snapping a picture of the chandelier on her phone. He eased her hand down gently. "No pictures, my dear," he said quietly. "It's gauche. You're not sightseeing." A light blush colored her cheeks, but she pocketed the device. "Of course, pardon me. It's simply stunning." An attendant appeared beside them, a seasoned fellow with impeccable posture and an unobtrusive air. "Mr. Steele, please allow me to guide you to your suite." They trailed him across the vast atrium, their steps cushioned by the marble expanse. They moved past sharply attired visitors and a cadre of personnel who operated with seamless, silent coordination. The lift resembled a paneled wooden sanctuary, complete with a cushioned bench in rich velvet. As it rose without a jolt, the attendant addressed them in a subdued, courteous voice. "The presidential suite is located on the top floor, sir. It comes with its own exclusive elevator access for complete privacy." He passed Donovan a substantial gold-embossed key fob. "You'll have a personal attendant, Mr. Henderson, available around the clock. He's ready for you above." "Excellent," Donovan responded with a hint of sarcasm. The lift doors parted straight into a secluded entryway. In front of them loomed a pair of ornate mahogany entrance doors. The attendant swung them open with a grand gesture and moved out of the way. The accommodations surpassed even Donovan's expectations. Rather than a simple lodging, it resembled an expansive residence. The sitting room boasted towering windows from floor to ceiling, providing a sweeping 180-degree vista of the urban horizon and the greenery down below. A majestic piano occupied one side, while a well-equipped liquor station filled another. The decor blended vintage artifacts with contemporary flair, all covered in luxurious fabrics of ivory, gold, and deep navy tones. Skylar inhaled sharply, releasing Donovan's arm and twirling amid the space. "Donovan, this dwarfs my whole apartment complex." He let out a deep, smug laugh. "My love, this is the lifestyle of the elite. Actually, scratch that. This is the realm of the top 1%. The attendant led them on a quick walkthrough. They saw the elegant dining space, the library, the primary sleeping quarters with its canopy bed, and a lavish bath area of polished stone, including a steam room and a whirlpool basin with city views. Once the attendant received a handsome gratuity and left, Donovan approached the liquor area and served 2 flutes of the icy Dom Perignon. He offered one to Skylar, who lingered near the enormous pane, captivated by the scenery. "A cheers," he proposed, tapping his glass to hers, "to a flawless getaway." "To our connection," she countered, her gaze sparkling with affection. They savored the premium, bubbly fizzing on their palates. Donovan sensed an unbreakable strength. All was ideal. Every aspect handled meticulously, every possibility accounted for. In this elevated haven, far from the chaos, he remained beyond reach. He had neatly divided his existence. the elegant spouse in the upscale East Side residence, the thrilling companion in this aerial retreat. He was convinced he commanded his entire domain, like a skilled orchestrator manipulating every essential thread. Unbeknownst to him, one of those threads, long deemed severed and discarded, linked directly to the structure's core where he now stood. The initial day passed in a haze of indulgent bliss. They summoned meals from an endless selection. They relaxed in opulent dressing gowns, indulging in the residence's extravagant features. Donovan experienced profound satisfaction. He deserved such luxury. The pressures of massive financial transactions and economic shifts dissolved amid this utter ease. That evening, they ate at the exclusive chef's counter in the establishment's triple Michelin-awarded eatery. The host recognized Donovan immediately, guiding them to the prime spot, a private alcove booth facing the venue's enclosed outdoor area. The feast unfolded as a symphony of gourmet mastery. Dish followed dish, each surpassing the previous in refinement. Donovan selected a bottle of Chateau Margaux that exceeded Skylar's typical housing costs, relishing her astonished reaction upon hearing its value. He displayed his dominance openly, and she responded as the ideal admirer. Throughout the night, he captivated her with tales of his business victories, negotiations sealed and competitors defeated. He portrayed himself as a contemporary giant, and she hung on his every word, her fingers lightly on his leg beneath the surface. He buzzed with renewed vigor, more vibrant than in ages. This was the affirmation he sought, the fervent loyalty that his spouse, Genevieve, had never fully offered. Genevieve's respect was always subdued and reserved. It resembled the calm endorsement of an equal, not the eager reverence of a devotee. The following day, Donovan rose past noon. Sunlight filtered through a sliver in the thick silk curtains. Skylar remained asleep, her golden locks spread across the extravagantly fine linens. He eased from the sheets, refreshed and at peace. He chose to enjoy a vapor session in the stone-clad washroom prior to calling for morning fare. Emerging from the misty enclosure, he reached for one of the plush, weighty wraps from the warming rail. It felt incredibly smooth, crafted from premium Egyptian fibers. He slipped it over himself and fastened the tie, glancing at his image in the clear-surfaced glass. That's when it caught his eye. Sewn onto the collar in delicate, refined silver stitching was an initial design, a G entwined with a VGV. He furrowed his brow, following the shapes with his touch. What could it signify? He dimly remembered the innkeeper's identity being noted. Dio, maybe. Perhaps it honored the establishment's origin lineage. That made sense. The place exuded classic continental heritage. Yet it struck him as curiously precise. He dismissed it with a shake. Merely initials. He headed back to the central area, the wrap securely tied. He summoned his butler, Mr. Henderson, to set up breakfast. As he lingered there, his gaze drifted across the space, now picking up on the finer points that had escaped him amid his first wave of wonder. He spotted the notepaper atop the mahogany writing table, hefty sheets in a rich ivory hue. He lifted one page. At the top edge, etched in that same refined lettering as the emblem, appeared the interlaced letters. A subtle, vague disquiet started to churn deep in his gut. It resembled catching one discordant tone amid a flawless orchestral piece. When Mr. Henderson showed up pushing a trolley brimming with their morning meal, cured salmon, eggs scrambled with truffles, warm baked goods, and gleaming urns of coffee, Donovan chose to inquire. "Mr. Henderson," he started, aiming for a light tone, "I've been appreciating the hotel's logo. These letters," he added, gesturing at the paper, "Greevy, after the establishment's originator." The servant, whose expression embodied impeccable reserve, hesitated just a moment. "The emblem signifies the proprietors, sir. It served as the hotel's symbol for ages." The reply came across as courteous, composed, and utterly uninformative, yet that brief pause didn't go unnoticed by Donovan. He earned his keep by gauging others' intentions. He could detect deception from across a conference room. The butler was dodging. "Understood," Donovan replied, letting it go, though the idea lingered. Over his meal, those characters echoed in his thoughts. GV, Guy. The sense of recognition gnawed at him. It brushed against the fringes of recollection, some identity or location he couldn't grasp. Genevieve sprang to mind. Her family name before marriage was Vaughn. Genevieve Vaughn. GV. The realization struck him like a solid punch. He set his mug down with a sharp rattle. Impossible. Such a wild fluke. Her lineage had money once, sure, but they'd squandered most of it long before her time. Her dad, William, had been a reserved, ordinary fellow who died 10 years back, bequeathing Genevieve a simple bequest that Donovan naturally had folded into his investments and overseen for her. He pictured William as a relic of bygone manners, forever droning on about principles and heritage, yet lacking any true depth. He'd run a handful of modest inns, Donovan remembered, but far from the grandeur of the St. George Royal Hotel. No, this was nonsense, a foolish, suspicious stretch. Plenty of combinations matched those letters: Grant, Vance, Duke, any of them more plausible. He glanced at Skylar, who was cheerfully snapping a picture of her artfully plated food for her online followers. She remained unaware of his inner storm. "You okay, Donovan? You seem like you've spotted a specter," she remarked, at last glancing away from her device. "I'm good," he retorted, his voice harsher than planned, "just pondering the stock trends." He willed his tension to ease. He was acting foolish, on the verge of an ideal getaway, and he was allowing a silly insignia to rattle him. He was Donovan Steele. He commanded everything. This realm was his. The hotel. The escape. Those letters meant nothing special. Still, through the day, the discomfort persisted. He began noticing the design in every corner, on the delicate silver sugar clips, the embossed dinner directory bound in leather, even the hems of the fabric serviettes. With each sighting, visions of his spouse's poised, tranquil features invaded his mind. The partner he believed he understood completely, the one he'd pegged as straightforward and routine, the lavish enclosure he'd crafted for her, now felt less confining and more impenetrable, a stronghold he'd never truly explored. The disturbing notion slipped in without warning. What if his wife was a total stranger to him? For their last evening, Donovan aimed to revive the enchantment of their debut night. He booked the chef's spot again, opting for the full tasting experience, paired with top-shelf wines. He resolved to dispel the odd suspicion that had shadowed him since dawn. He'd wash away his worries with aged reds and reclaim his poise. He and Skylar got ready. He donned a sleek, bespoke midnight suit, while she slipped into the eye-catching scarlet gown without a back that he'd gifted her. Facing the glass together, serenity washed over him once more. They appeared every inch the influential duo. They fit right in. The emblem was a figment, a product of a stressed mind. They rode down to the dining area. The exclusive lift deposited them anew in the realm of subdued sophistication. The host, a suave French gentleman by the name of Jean-Luc, met him with a smile even friendlier than the previous evening. "Mr. Steele, delighted to have you return. Your spot awaits. The chef eagerly awaits unveiling this evening's offerings." They were ushered to the identical private alcove. Donovan eased into the sumptuous cushioned seat. The recognizable ambiance steadied him. He called for a flask of Krug to kick things off. A toasting flourish intended to be Donovan finally shook off the remnants of his silly doubts. "You know," Skylar murmured, inching closer and resting her palm atop his, "this has turned out to be the most amazing getaway I've ever had. I feel just like royalty." "You certainly do," Donovan replied, his assurance surging back. He'd been acting foolish. After all, this was his reality now. He'd orchestrated it all himself. The opening dishes were exquisite. A light vichyssoise of oysters, then grilled scallops topped with a zesty foam. Their chat stayed breezy, and Schuyler's chuckles rang out like a melody, wiping away any lingering hesitations. He was on the verge of lifting his glass for a cheer to their tomorrow when he picked up on a faint change in the dining room's vibe. A hushed buzz, a wave of unease was emanating from the doorway. The waitstaff, normally the epitome of composed efficiency, appeared to stiffen noticeably. Jean-Luc, the maitre d', was murmuring intently to a fellow in a somber suit equipped with a discreet earpiece for security. Donovan observed with casual interest. "Seems like a big shot's just shown up," he remarked to Schuyler. Seconds later, Jean-Luc started heading their way. His face, a polished blend of regret and respect, betrayed deep unease. "Mr. Steele," he started, keeping his tone hushed. "What's going on?" Donovan inquired, a hint of annoyance creeping in. Before Jean-Luc could answer, the cause of the stir revealed itself. A compact cluster of individuals had stepped inside and now lingered by the door, scanning the space. Leading them was a woman. Donovan's veins turned to ice. The champagne glass in his grip grew leaden, his fingertips tingling with numbness. It was Genevieve. But this wasn't the Genevieve he'd abandoned back home, the one in cozy sweaters and understated pearls. This was a whole new being. She sported a razor-sharp navy pantsuit that highlighted her lanky, elegant build. Her locks, typically loose and gentle, were pulled into a crisp, austere bob that highlighted features etched with frosty poise and unyielding command. Her sole accessories were oversized diamond earrings that gleamed like frozen shards. She was accompanied by two gentlemen. One was an older, refined figure, with graying hair and piercing gaze, a person Donovan knew with a surge of dread. Elias Sterling, the famed and infamously cutthroat business lawyer who'd been a trusted ally of Genevieve's dad. The other was the resort's top executive, someone Donovan recalled from the promo images. They positioned themselves just a step back, like devoted aides shadowing their commander. Schuyler, tracing Donovan's rigid stare, pivoted around. "Donovan, who's that woman? Do you recognize her? She reminds me a bit of your—" Her words faded as the truth started sinking in. Genevieve's scan of the area was steady and systematic until it locked onto their spot. Her stare held no astonishment, no jolt, merely a chilly, calculated acknowledgement. It was the gaze of a hunter, zeroing in on its quarry at last. The whole eatery had gone still. Patrons sat motionless, utensils suspended midway, their murmurs silenced. The sole noise was the faint tap of Genevieve's stilettos against the polished stone as she advanced toward them. It felt like an eternity to Donovan. Each stride reverberated through the heavy quiet like a tolling bell counting down to his downfall. His thoughts whirled, scrambling for a fabrication, a justification, a way out. But nothing came. The fragile barriers of his secret existence weren't merely fracturing, they were dissolving right in front of him. He glanced at Schuyler, her complexion drained of color, her crimson-lipped grin twisted into a mask of horror. He scanned the other guests, their expressions blending intrigue and sympathy, then fixed on his spouse, now mere paces distant. In her eyes, he spotted no betrayed partner as he'd half anticipated. Instead, he confronted an unknown force. He beheld a sovereign reclaiming her domain, and a bone-deep chill told him he was merely a trespasser in her realm. Genevieve halted by their table. She ignored Schuyler entirely. Her intense glacial focus zeroed in on Donovan alone. The aroma of her cologne, a refined, costly scent he hadn't caught from her in ages, wafted over. It was crisp and pure, evoking crisp winter gusts. "Donovan," she uttered. Her tone was even, stripped of all feeling. It resembled the steady timbre she employed for directing employees, composed and conclusive. "I think you're occupying my chair." The words lingered, a brilliantly layered barb. Donovan gaped at her, throat parched. He sensed countless stares drilling into him. The polished image of Donovan Steele, the Empire's architect, was fracturing like brittle crystal. "Genevieve," he he muttered, his brain a void of alarm. What? Why are you here? I figured you were still in New York at the charity event. A faint, joyless curve brushed her mouth. I called it off. A matter of greater urgency demanded my at. Her attention finally shifted to Skylar, a fleeting, scornful glance that absorbed the lavish gown and the look of sheer panic. She regarded her not as competition, but like an ill-placed ornament in the room. And I notice you've brought along a companion. Skylar recoiled in her chair, gazing up at Donovan with desperate, wide-eyed fear. She parted her lips to respond, but nothing emerged. Genevieve swung her focus back to Donovan. I have to admit, Donovan, you've outdone yourself. The presidential suite, the chef's table, you certainly favor the finer things. It's reassuring to learn you value the family enterprise. The family enterprise. The phrase struck him like a solid punch, linking the disturbing clues that had plagued him throughout the day. The emblem. G.V. Genevieve Vaughn. I don't get it, he stammered, even as the reality slammed into him with overwhelming power. Let me make this plain, Genevieve replied, her tone dropping a notch, sharpening to razor-like clarity. Every syllable felt like a sharpened edge. My father, William Vaughn, established the Vaughn Hotel Group 6 decades back. His debut property was a modest rural lodge, yet he was a visionary. He constructed a vast network through sheer determination. The St. George Royal Hotel stood as his crowning achievement, the gem of his legacy. Upon his passing, he bequeathed his full ownership stake, every share to me. She halted, allowing the revelation to sink in. The whole dining area hung on her words, spellbound by the intense personal saga playing out. For a decade, she went on, I permitted a select group of directors, handpicked by my father, to oversee the firm's routine affairs. I sought a serene existence. I aimed to nurture my family. I longed to be a devoted spouse. I believed the legacy my father created rested securely, and I placed faith in my partner. Her stare fixed on his, and for the first time, he glimpsed the profound hurt he had inflicted. But she quelled it swiftly, arming herself with unyielding resolve. Lately, though, I chose to step in more directly. Starting from last Monday's yearly shareholders' assembly, I disbanded the board and claimed my due authority. I now serve as the exclusive executive chair of the Vaughn Hotel Group, owner of this establishment and 117 more across the globe. That monogram you've spotted all over isn't for any Viscount. It represents Genevieve Vaughn. Welcome to my domain, Donovan. The hush in the space was total. Donovan sensed the color fading from his cheeks. He wasn't a ruler in seized lands. He was an idiot who'd thrown a gathering in the beast's lair, oblivious that the beast was present. Genevieve then aimed her eyes at Skylar. Miss Hayes, correct. Skylar bobbed her head, quivering. You're employed as an analyst at Steele & Associates Capital. I suspect that intimate relations with a senior vice president, your immediate boss, constitutes a blatant breach of your company's moral guidelines, to say nothing of poor discretion. Your job is over. Mr. Sterling has reached out to your employer's HR director and its governing board. No need to show up at work come Monday. Skylar emitted a faint, strangled sob. Her ideal getaway had twisted into a professional disaster. At last, Genevieve addressed the man she'd shared 15 years of marriage with. Regarding you, Donovan, our shared banking accounts, containing my family's trust assets that you so kindly volunteered to oversee, have been locked down. The security on the Upper East Side apartment has been updated. Your possessions are currently being packed and routed to your workplace. Skip heading back there. You're barred from entry. She withdrew a lone paper from her handbag and set it down amid Donovan's meal and his goblet of wine. This is the dissolution agreement prepared by Mr. Sterling. My conditions are ironclad. You'll discover I've diligently recorded your betrayals over the last 3 years. Sign it. Depart with just what you're wearing, and you'll have no contact with our kids unless I grant explicit, monitored approval. Resist me, and I'll deploy every asset at my disposal to shatter not just your profession, but your reputation entirely. I'll make Sterling a byword for disgrace and collapse in every moneyed network worldwide. Understood. Donovan managed only a stunned gape. The partner he'd patronized, belittled, and treated as mere adornment had just unraveled his whole existence in less than 3 minutes, right there in public, with the detached accuracy of a specialist. With that, she pivoted. "Jean-Luc," she instructed the maitre d', who appeared ashen and stiff, "kindly see to it that Mr. Sterling's companion is shown out, and hand Mr. Sterling the complete tab for his visit. He'll cover it via his individual credit." She cast Donovan a final, protracted glance. It conveyed closure, the end of one era and the dawn of another. No animosity lingered, just a profound, icy detachment. Then, accompanied by her lawyer, she and the hotel's general manager watched as Genevieve Vaughn, the board chair, pivoted sharply and strode from the dining area, her bearing impeccable, her dominance unyielding, abandoning the charred remnants of the existence she'd just demolished. For an extended instant following Genevieve's exit, Donovan stayed rooted in place, a monument to astonishment and disgrace. The quiet in the eatery shattered at last with a stifled cry from Skylar. She pushed her seat away abruptly, her features streaked with ruined makeup and incredulity. "My career," she murmured, gazing at Donovan as though encountering him anew, not as a business mogul, but as the culprit behind her downfall. You claimed it was all handled. I believed you." He muttered the phrases, tasting their bitterness like soot on his tongue. 2 unobtrusive yet resolute security personnel appeared beside their booth. The maitre d', Jean-Luc, drew near, his countenance a veil of courteous sorrow. "Miss," he murmured gently to Skylar, "would you please come with us?" Skylar glanced frantically between the guards and Donovan, but he provided no support. He couldn't even hold her stare. Mortified, she snatched her tiny handbag and permitted herself to be guided out. Her crimson gown cut a streak of embarrassment amid the subdued hues of the venue. Once she had vanished, Jean-Luc set down a leather-bound folder containing the bill on the surface. "Your tab, Mr. Steele." Donovan eyed it dully, flipping it open without enthusiasm. The amount revealed was staggering. The luxury accommodations, the in-room meals, the rare vintages, the gourmet selections. It was a total that might stun ordinary folks, yet for him, it ought to have been insignificant. He groped for his billfold, fingers quivering faintly. He passed the matte black card to Jean-Luc. The maitre d' came back shortly, his look even more strained. "I'm sorry, Mr. Steele, the payment was rejected." "What?" Donovan snorted derisively. "That's absurd. Run it once more." "We've done so, sir, thrice. It seems the funds have been halted." Naturally, the shared finances. Genevieve hadn't merely restricted them. She'd probably arranged for his extra cards to be revoked. He rummaged for a different option, a company visa. "Use this instead." Jean-Luc re-emerged, giving a subtle head shake. "Rejected as well." "Sir." Heat flooded Donovan's cheeks. The surrounding patrons had stopped feigning disinterest. Their murmurs formed a subtle buzz of condemnation. He no longer belonged among them. He had become the night's spectacle. "This is absurd. There has to be an error," Donovan roared, his tone escalating. The general manager, the very one who'd stood by Genevieve, approached the booth. His attitude had shifted from subservient to icy, authoritative. "Mr. Steele, do you possess an alternative payment option? Otherwise, we'll need to treat this as unauthorized use and notify the police." The warning lingered heavily, oppressive and choking. Donovan Steele, who routinely shifted billions before dawn, couldn't cover his lodging charges. The shame was total. He carried no ready money, no valid cards. He was cornered. Mr. Sterling, Genevieve's attorney, materialized once more at the room's periphery. He conferred briefly with the manager in hushed tones, then turned to Donovan. "Mr. Steele," Sterling intoned, his timbre rough as stone. "Mrs. Steele," "Pardon, Ms. Vaughn, has kindly agreed to cover your balance. It'll come out of any scant divorce payout you might anticipate. View it as her parting favor." He nudged the dissolution documents nearer to Donovan. "I'd advise signing immediately." Beaten, Donovan accepted the pen. His mark, typically a confident flourish, emerged as a feeble, shaky scrawl. He'd been thoroughly outplayed in every way. "Now," the general manager declared firmly, "you have 10 minutes to gather your items and leave the property. Security will see you off." The humiliating trek from the dining space across the opulent foyer and into the lift was agonizing. Each stare from a visitor, each covert glance from an employee struck like a tangible strike. The former deference and courtesy had evaporated, supplanted by scorn and detached apathy. Up in the suite, his possessions had been hastily packed into his luggage by a grim-faced valet. 10 minutes on, Donovan Steele lingered at the sidewalk beyond the St. George Royal Hotel, the identical location where he'd pulled up less than 24 hours earlier, exuding regal confidence. The doorman who'd welcomed him so effusively now gazed past him entirely. His Rolls-Royce had disappeared, impounded, he guessed, since it was titled under Genevieve's name. A light rain began to fall, a chill and dreary downpour. He attempted to summon an Uber, but the service tied to his voided accounts. He remained there, clad in a $1,000 ensemble, phone rendered pointless and pockets empty, while cabs and luxury cars hurried by. He was marooned. He set off on foot, the mist drenching the fabric of his lightweight jacket. He had no destination. His residence belonged to her now. His workplace promised only embarrassment. His acquaintances, he realized, would align with influence and legacy wealth. They would back Genevieve Vaughn. The reports WW. He dreaded how this epic embarrassment would spread like wildfire among their elite social network. Spotting a vintage payphone, a holdover from bygone days, he fished out the spare change from his pocket to reach out to his last loyal contact, a junior associate at the company by the name of Frank. "Frank, Donovan here. I'm in deep water. Serious trouble," he stammered, attempting to recount the chaos. But his account emerged as a jumbled, frantic mess. Frank stayed silent throughout, and when Donovan wrapped up, a heavy silence stretched out. "Donovan," Frank replied, his tone strained, "I received an email from the board just now. It's regarding you. They've scheduled an urgent session for Monday morning. They're activating the morality clause. Genevieve's attorney forwarded a complete file. Pictures, financial records, the works. They're letting you go." The handset tumbled from Donovan's lifeless grip, banging noisily inside the booth's metal enclosure. It was finished. All of it. Overnight, he'd forfeited his marriage, his kids, his residence, his affair, his career, and his wealth. Genevieve hadn't merely triumphed over him, she'd wiped him out entirely. Gazing upward at the lavish top-floor apartment in the St. George Royal Hotel, a symbol of dominance towering over the skyline, he realized he'd soared too near the flames, unaware that the heat source was his spouse. And now he plummeted unchecked, with no solid ground visible. 6 months on, society had advanced without him, abandoning Donovan Steele to the shadows. The title that formerly inspired awe on the NYSE trading floor had morphed into a hushed cautionary tale, a spectral anecdote shared with eager newcomers about the perils of hubris. True to Genevieve's vow, her success wasn't simply his loss, it was an utter obliteration. The crisis board session at Steele & Associates Capital proved mere procedure, a swift and detached dismissal. His workspace got emptied before he could even absorb the dismissal. That overlooked ethics provision in the company, bylaws had turned into the blade that cut him off from his professional legacy. His fresh existence draped him in a choking veil of obscurity and defeat. The luxurious Upper East Side apartment gave way to a cramped third-story unit in a remote borough, reeking of moisture and the aromas from adjacent residents' meals. The expansive floor-to-ceiling panes that once framed sweeping urban vistas were supplanted by a grimy single window facing a tag-scarred masonry barrier. The serene hush of his prior privileged routine yielded to the unending clamor of emergency vehicles, bickering locals, and the creaky wheeze of the ancient heating system. He offloaded the Patek Philippe watch, followed by the cufflinks, and eventually the prized artworks he'd cherished. Every transaction chipped away at his former self, leaving just a hollow remnant. These days, he toiled at a nondescript outfit named Apex Solutions, a moniker so bland it stung. His executive suite had shrunk to a tight workspace beneath buzzing overhead fluorescents. The tycoon who once swayed markets with one dial now endured monotonous input tasks and regulatory reviews, chores once relegated to entry-level staff. His superior, a cocky upstart, 15 years younger, fresh from school, regarded Donovan with thinly disguised disdain, savoring the knowledge of his past glory and current plight. At times, spotting vibrant, ambitious young women around the office who evoked memories of Skylar, a wave of sharp bitterness washed over him. It wasn't guilt over her shattered path, but fury at how his indulgences had dragged him to this point. Evenings proved most grueling. The deep solitude in his modest space felt almost tangible. He attempted reaching out to former comrades, the fellows with whom he'd savored fine smokes and aged spirits. Most lines rang into void. The rare responders offered curt, frosty exchanges before hanging up hastily. He posed a risk now, an outcast from polite society. No longer part of the inner circle, he was merely a guy in a budget flat tormented by echoes of his old world, nursing regret like a toxin each evening over bargain booze. As Donovan wallowed in the swamp of his self-inflicted ruin, Genevieve soared higher. Stepping into the chairmanship of the Vaughn Hotel Group, she proved not merely capable, but imposing. Decades of subtle watching, of being overlooked and sidelined, had shaped her into a sharp, bold executive. She spotted opportunities the entrenched male directors, cozy in their routines, had ignored. One afternoon, inside the executive conference room atop Vaughn Tower, she unveiled her flagship idea, the Vaughn Green Initiative. This 10-year, multi-million-dollar strategy aimed to render the whole chain environmentally neutral, emphasizing eco-friendly supplies, green power sources, and local partnerships. A stout, graying director by the name of Gerald Campos, an old regime survivor and her father's acquaintance, cleared his throat with patronizing air. "Genevieve, if I may say so respectfully, this is a fine idea in theory, but the numbers seem overly optimistic. The upfront costs will erode our earnings for an extended period. Our investors demand re-dividends, not moral grandstanding." Genevieve remained unflinching. She met his stare with her composed, unwavering gaze. "Thank you, Gerald. I appreciate your conventional viewpoint." The term conventional was delivered with exacting clarity, rendering it equivalent to obsolete. She activated a control, and the display behind her lit up with intricate graphs and forecast models. "What you term moral grandstanding, Gerald, I regard as safeguarding our future. Our primary audience, Voyagers below 40 possessing substantial disposable income, is progressively choosing based on business morals and environmental responsibility. This isn't a cost, it's a stake in our brand's enduring appeal over the coming half-century. My forecasts indicate a temporary 5% decline in net earnings during the initial 18 months, but favorable coverage, heightened customer devotion, and state fiscal benefits will drive a forecasted 15% expansion in market position over 5 years. We'll transcend mere opulence. We'll embody principled opulence." She halted, allowing her statement to resonate. "My father established this enterprise on excellence and heritage. This represents the heritage of the current era." The proposal endured. A wave of supportive whispers spread across the chamber. Gerald Campos slumped back into his seat, vanquished. From the sidelines, Elias Sterling observed. An uncommon grin of satisfaction crossed his features. The dormant powerhouse had fully roused. Genevieve's fresh existence extended beyond corporate meetings. The lavish Upper East Side residence, formerly a sterile exhibit of Donovan's triumphs, had evolved. It became a haven brimming with coziness and joy. She devoted herself to her kids, genuinely attentive for the very first time. She assisted with assignments, showed up at theatrical performances, and engaged in extended dialogues about their aspirations and anxieties. She uncovered delight in those modest, authentic instances she had overlooked while embodying the flawless executive spouse. She transcended the role of chairperson. She emerged as a parent, a guide, a complete individual, at last embracing her existence according to her own rules. On a chilly fall night, Donovan trudged back from the underground rail stop, his meager jacket's collar hiked against the sharp gusts. The metropolis, once his domain, now seemed foreign and adversarial. He paused at a periodical kiosk. The vibrant sheen of the publications clashed against the dull sidewalk. And there she appeared. Her image graced the front of Forbes. It was a captivating image. Genevieve posed on the terrace of the executive level at the St. George Royal Hotel, his former domain, with urban glows shimmering below like a tapestry of jewels beneath her. She confronted the lens head-on, her countenance radiating tranquil authority and resolute assurance. The caption proclaimed her ascension, Genevieve Vaughn, how the understated air reshaped a worldwide dynasty. His fingers shook as he handed over payment for the issue. In the stifling quiet of his dwelling, he settled beneath the lone faint bulb and perused the piece. It was a panegyric, an eloquent homage to her brilliance. It outlined her eco-friendly efforts, her astute takeovers of niche lodging networks, her staff equity sharing scheme. It cited competitors extending reluctant praise. Then it reached her private sphere. After a cordial separation from her former spouse, it stated, Vaughn has channeled her energy into her offspring and her position as a revolutionary figure in the lodging sector, demonstrating that a fresh phase can yield the greatest fulfillment, cordial separation. The phrase ignited a bitter, arid chuckle within him. He wasn't cast as the antagonist in her tale. He scarcely merited a mention. He was merely an erased error, a troublesome element wholly excised from the account. He released the publication from his grasp. It dropped to the ground, her victorious visage gazing upward at him. He had never truly perceived her. For 15 years he had gazed upon her daily, yet only discerned a mirror of his achievements, a lovely, yielding ornament. He failed to notice the keen intellect, the enduring spirit, and the unyielding Vaughn resilience coursing through her. He believed himself the sovereign of his realm, a central star dictating all motion. Yet he had merely been a peripheral satellite circling a luminary, naively assuming his faint glow generated every force. He rose and approached the pane, fixating on the shadowy, relentless masonry that defined his vista. He envisioned her in her perch atop Vaughn Tower, surveying the boundless, sparkling stretch of the metropolis, a realm now ripe for her dominion. High above, a vibrant sunrise had dawned for Genevieve Vaughn, radiant and laden with potential. For Donovan Steele, abandoned in the shadows beneath, it marked an eternal and fitting dusk. Donovan Steele absorbed the most severe truth imaginable. The individual you least regard might wield every advantage. He viewed his partner as mere furnishing in his ideal world, only to realize she commanded the whole structure, while he amounted to a fleeting visitor who lingered beyond his due. Genevieve's narrative stands as a potent, just a gentle nudge that true strength doesn't always roar. Often it's the quiet, steadfast energy that bides its time until the ideal chance to seize control again. This tale weaves themes of fairness, self-empowerment, and the dramatic fallout from disloyalty. What did you think of the narrative? And from which town are you tuning in? Drop by in the comments to connect. If the story resonated, consider hitting that super thanks button to help me deliver even more tales like this one. A huge thanks for your kind backing. I'm eager to hear your thoughts in the comments. Check out the 2 Fresh Life accounts popping up on your screen. I can't recommend them enough. My channel's packed with tons more goodies, so hit subscribe if you haven't. Catch you in the upcoming tale.